Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today's title is Marie Curie. Alternate pronunciation for the title is Marie Curie. It's a Polish name, so I will go with Marie Curie. If you're looking for inspiration from true stories, then this book is for you. Keep watching. On November 7, 1867, Maria Salomea Sklodowska was born at 16 Freta Street in Warsaw, Poland. Her family nicknamed her Mania, but one day she would be known by another name, Marie Curie, one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. Her mother was the principal of a school for girls, and her father was a math and physics teacher. One of Mania's earliest memories was of her father's cabinet full of scientific instruments. Mania didn't know what the instruments were for, but they fascinated her. Surrounded by three elder sisters and a brother who all loved books, Mania figured out how to read at just 4 years old. Mania loved to learn and was always at the top of her class, even though she was 2 years younger than the other children. Life in Poland was very difficult. Warsaw was occupied by Tsarist Russia, and the Polish people had no freedom. Mania did all her lessons in Russian, but she also spoke fluent Polish and French. Life at home was also difficult. When Mania was 8, her eldest sister Zosha died of a disease called typhus. Just 2 years later, her mother died of tuberculosis, a lung disease. Mania began doing many of the jobs her mother had done at home, but she also started to work even harder on her lessons. Because girls in Poland were not allowed to go to university, Mania and her sister Bronya wanted to study in Paris, but their family did not have enough money for them both to go. The two sisters made a deal. Bronya would go to Paris to study medicine while Mania worked to support her. Then, after Bronya finished school, she would help Mania as Mania completed her studies. In 1886, Mania worked as a governess to the children of a wealthy family who owned a beet sugar factory north of Warsaw. She also taught poor local children to read and write. On her own, Mania did not stop learning. She dreamed of Paris and the Sorbonne, a famous university where she could attend formal classes, learn from brilliant professors, and even use a laboratory for her experiments. When Bronya completed her studies in 1890, she kept her promise to Mania. She became engaged to a fellow medical student and invited her younger sister to live with them in Paris. But Mania decided that she preferred to live on her own. She came to Paris from Poland on a train ride that took 40 hours. In November of 1891, Mania enrolled at the Sorbonne as Marie Sklodowska. By this time, she had forgotten some of her French and she didn't have very much money. But she was excited. Her dreams were finally coming true. In 1893, she graduated first in her class with an advanced degree in physics and a scholarship for the next year. In 1894, she graduated second in her class with a degree in mathematics. While completing these degrees, Marie met another brilliant mind. She was introduced to Pierre Curie by a friend and fellow Polish physicist. Pierre immediately recognized her intelligence. Marie was impressed by his work. Pierre and his brother Jacques or Zakka had made important discoveries while studying electricity, magnetism, heat, and crystals. Together, they invented the electrometer, an instrument that measures electricity given off by crystals and other types of matter. Their ideas are used today in mobile phones, quartz watches, and record players. Although Pierre was much older than Marie, they fell in love and were married in 1895. They celebrated by bicycling through the French countryside. When they returned, Marie studied to become a teacher, and Pierre eventually became a professor in Paris. Marie continued to research, run the household, cook, and clean, and in 1897 she gave birth to their daughter Irene. The new mother was busy, but that did not slow her down. Thankfully, Pierre's father came to help with the baby. With a child at home, Marie needed a place to continue her experiments. At Pierre's School of Physics and Industrial Chemistry, there was a leaky old shed that was cold and damp, but it was empty and it was hers. There, Marie decided to study the mysterious energy given off by a metallic element called uranium. She began her research by looking for other things that gave off the same invisible rays. She soon found the element thorium did too. Her research was so successful that Pierre left his work to join hers. Marie now knew any solid matter that contained uranium or thorium gave off rays, but nobody knew the cause. Marie decided to find out. She started by looking for something unseen, a new element unlike any other known to man. A mineral called pitchblende contained both uranium and thorium, so the Curies ordered several tons to test Marie's theory. First, she ground the rock to powder and then dissolved it in acid over and over again to separate all of the different elements that made up the pitchblende. After everything was finally removed, Marie and Pierre found that pitchblende gave off radiation much greater than could be explained by the remaining uranium. Marie and Pierre realized they had discovered not one but two new elements. They called the first new metal polonium in honor of Marie's homeland, Poland. The second element they called radium. They also created the word radioactive to describe substances that emitted rays or radiation. Marie wrote about their findings, but other scientists were doubtful and demanded that the couple prove their results by figuring out the new element's atomic weight. For 4 years, Marie and Pierre worked on this tricky problem. They removed all the known elements from the purified pitchblende until one day the only thing left was a tiny speck in a little glass container. They were not quite sure what to make of it. In bed that night, the two scientists tossed and turned, wondering if something had gone wrong. Marie and Pierre decided that they couldn't sleep until they had figured it out. They headed back to the lab in the middle of the night. It was pitch black as they stumbled inside, except for one spot. There, on the table, glowing in the darkness, was a tiny speck of light from Marie's little glass container. The Curies finally had their pure radium. Although they had managed to isolate only a tiny amount of radium, Marie was able to calculate its atomic weight. They continued working in the old shed, but soon some interesting and painful problems arose. Although radiation from uranium had seemed harmless, radium was much stronger. Everything in the shed became radioactive. Marie and Pierre developed blisters and sores on their hands that would not heal for months. If they tried to carry a small tube of radium in a jacket pocket, it would burn their skin right through the glass and fabric. They realized that radium's ability to burn skin might have a surprising use. If it could burn healthy flesh, it might also be able to burn away unhealthy parts that had cancer. Marie and Pierre had stumbled upon one of the greatest contributions to the world of modern medicine. The year 1903 ended with the Curies receiving the most prestigious award of all, the Nobel Prize in Physics. The following year, the Curies had their second daughter, Eve, and Pierre accepted a job teaching at the Sorbonne. Although Pierre began to feel weak, a hint at the unknown dangers of radium, the hard work and research seemed to be paying off. The growing family was happy. On Thursday, April 19, 1906, everything changed. It was a rainy afternoon when Pierre stepped out of a meeting with fellow professors. Not wanting to get too wet, he decided to run to his next appointment. As he crossed the busy narrow street, Pierre accidentally stepped into traffic and was struck by a wagon, which killed him instantly. Although Marie was devastated, she refused to let her sadness interfere with her work. Instead, she took over Pierre's classes and became the first female professor at the Sorbonne. Marie continued her juggling act of teaching, researching, and caring for her daughters. She even found the time to prove once and for all that radium and polonium existed after Lord Kelvin, a British scientist, challenged her findings. On November 7, 1911, Marie was awarded a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry for the discovery of the elements radium and polonium. Marie traveled to Stockholm and received the medal from the King of Sweden himself, making her the first person to win the Nobel Prize twice. Then, in the summer of 1914, France went to war. The German army began closing in on Paris, and many soldiers were injured and dying. Marie understood that X-raying soldiers quickly often meant the difference between life and death. Marie had a truck turned into a mobile X-ray machine that could drive to the wounded and X-ray them. Eventually, she reorganized a fleet of 20 X-ray ambulances called Little Curies. By the end of World War I in 1918, more than 1 million wounded men had been X-rayed thanks to Marie Curie. For all of her work, Marie was invited to travel to America to accept a gram of radium worth $100,000 for her research. When she arrived in the spring of 1921, she received a hero's welcome and was honored at the White House by President Warren Harding. Since its discovery, radium had become very popular. People drank it to cure arthritis, and companies put it in lipstick and face powder to make skin shine. Shampoo, soap, chocolate bars, and toothpaste all contained radium. The element was even painted on watches and aluminum airplane instruments to make them glow in the dark. Female factory workers who painted these watches and instruments were called radium girls. As they painted, they would moisten the tips of their brushes in their mouths again and again to keep a very fine point. Some of the girls painted their teeth and fingernails with the glowing paint for fun. But eventually, the girls began to notice that when they sneezed into their handkerchiefs glowed in the dark. Then they started to lose their teeth. They had accidentally poisoned themselves with radium. By the mid 1920s, scientists recognized the dangers of radioactivity. They realized that radiation given off from radium could both kill and cure. Although scientists began using protection when working with radiation, Marie had already started to become ill from all her years of exposure. On July 4, 1934, Marie Curie died in the French Alps at the age of 66. Marie Curie's tireless research came at great cost, but her discoveries also greatly improved life. She and her husband had successfully developed a new weapon in the fight against cancer, and Marie's ideas about the atom helped her daughter Irene unlock the power of nuclear energy. Marie was convinced that humanity would draw more good than evil from the new discoveries, and so, throughout her life's work, she never hesitated in the pursuit of knowledge. Okay, the end. Book finishes here, and hope you liked the book. And if you like it, then please like and subscribe. Thank you for